Hello and welcome back to CEMA's podcast. Y'all ready for this? Where we talk about all things emergency preparedness to make sure that you and your family are ready for any type of natural or man-made disaster. With us again, we have the one, the only Leigh Herald with Chatham County Occupational Safety, Risk Management, and Disability Services, maybe the longest department name in the entire county, probably. Leigh, welcome back.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be returning.
And my sidekick here, my co-host, Sakile Johnson. Sakile, I feel like you've been on more of these than I have at this point. I refuse to do a podcast without you, and I will sob when you leave. Sakile, thanks for being here today.
Hello again, everybody.
So, oddly enough, podcasters, when we were here last time with Sakile and Leigh, we had an awesome conversation, and afterwards we kind of started talking about other topics and other things that we might want to engage in and have a conversation about. And we came up with this idea of work zone safety. There is so much construction that is happening around Chatham County right now. I cannot travel into work. I cannot go to the grocery store. I cannot go anywhere without running into some type of construction. So we wanted to bring Leigh back to talk about how we can keep ourselves safe and how, more importantly, sometimes to keep the roadways safe so that everyone can travel, appropriately and not have to worry about not being able to make it home to their families. So Leigh, let's talk. Let's get this conversation going with your fantastic subject matter expert self. Why in the world are there so many accidents in these work zones and around these work zones?
I don't know anybody who enjoys driving through work zones, and I'm right there with you, coming in every morning and going home in the evenings. They are necessary, and it's going to be so worth it to have some of these projects completed when they're done. But man, they can be headaches. We know that they can be deadly too. And we've seen a lot of that in the last few years. In 2020, now think about the year 2020, Georgia DOT reported over 17,000 crashes in work zones, and over 5,000 people were injured. But the most important thing was 24 people lost their lives. And that doesn't have to happen. But think about 2020. We were quarantined a lot of 2020. A lot of people were quarantined. So there wasn't a lot of traffic on the road, but we still had 24 people lose their life. What we are learning through research and human behavior, we're looking at human behaviors, is that we as drivers don't recognize the dangers in the work zones because the road in front of us is still drivable. Right?
Right.
The condition of the road hasn't changed. And so our driving through that has not changed. And then, if the road becomes treacherous, what do? We slow down. So right now with the construction, the work zones, we're driving through there at regular speeds when it should be reduced speeds. But because we can still travel that road without breaking our vehicle and the road's not all in pieces, we drive the way we always have. And we have to think about the activity that's going around in the work zone with all the heavy equipment and things that are changing quickly that could interfere with our ability to drive safe through that work zone. Some of the drivers may not be prepared to react as quickly as they need to for a various number of reasons. We know that there are 5 main causes of these crashes in work zones. Phones, being distracted, being on the phone, talking, texting, or being distracted with makeup or passengers. Following too closely is another one. Someone stops suddenly and we're so close to them, we can't stop without hitting them. Speeding and in really quick lane changes. I think people make really quick lane changes, but no matter what you do, the work zone is going to slow you down. It just doesn't make sense to try to speed up really fast, only to have to slam on brakes to avoid a rear-end collision. And then we know number 4 would be the warning signs that they put up. They plan this according to the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So this is something that across the United States is uniform, the markings, the signs, and things like that. But think about the signs that you see every day on your way in. We're bombarded with signs. So we've gotten to the point where we pass a sign and we don't even know what it says because we didn't pay attention to it. And then you don't think about this very often, but we are still dealing with impaired drivers, whether it be drugs or alcohol. We do have impaired drivers out there. And then you add in that work zone. And so it does create a hazard. And that's one reason, or actually 5 reasons, that we're seeing so many collisions and crashes in our work zones. And I think most of it comes from human error. Sure does.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the money there. Human error. And I drive through these work zones and the speed limit's 55. I'd have to take 95 into 16 on a continuous basis. The speed limit is 55, but people are driving past me, and then I feel like a social outcast because I'm not also going 80. And I'm like, why are you going so fast? Like, what are you doing? You are not that important, friend. Or maybe you are, and I just don't know. I don't know. Sakile, what you got?
It too, if you think about, the speed limit being 55, and then people are doing 10 and 15 miles over the speed limit, we do have Georgia State Patrol out there, Pooler PD, and we have law enforcement out there that is trying to reduce the amount of speeders and be visible. But when you get pulled over in a construction zone or a work zone, your fines are going to be sky high because they are increased in that construction and work zone. And that's 24 hours a day. So if you can afford it.
No.
So what areas in Savannah are these work zone accidents frequently occurring? And I think you might touch on this a little bit, but what kind of hazards should drivers going through those work zones be looking out for?
Well, currently, we're seeing almost daily collisions and crashes in the I-16, I-95 interchange that they're redoing, and then along the I-16 corridor where they're making improvements. And this could be due to the volume of traffic. There's so many people going through there. But also drivers are becoming familiar. So local drivers are becoming familiar with the lane shifts and the changes and whatnot. So they're letting their guard down as well. We saw this same thing happen when Highway 204 was being worked on through Georgetown. We started seeing a lot of work zone crashes there. I think some of the hazards, though, you've got to watch for the construction vehicles that are going in and out of the site. We don't expect in the left lane, if we're traveling in the left lane, we don't expect the car in front of us to just veer off into the median. We are not expecting that. And then rapidly merging traffic. So you've got some people that are zipping in and out in between cars and things. You've got drivers that are tailgating. Other hazards would be construction barrels. So the equipment, the barricades and the barrels and things, they can get blown around by the wind. And so you don't expect to see an orange and white barrel come flying into your lane of traffic. And you've got drivers swerving to avoid them. And then just altered road conditions. So you're going to have rough pavement, uneven lanes. It might narrow down. You may have a real sharp turn that for a shift, for a lane shift. And I've noticed that you can still see the old pavement, the old paint markings. So the old lines, you can see that. So those are just a few of the hazards, that could cause trouble in the work zones.
Well, and it's tough because even your locals are confused about these traffic patterns. So not only do you have tourists that are coming in, we're still in a hot tourist season, and you've got your locals that are just as confused, and it ends up making it that much more dangerous because honestly, no one has any idea how the traffic pattern is going to change that day. So I've been through your defensive driving class. I know other people take defensive driving. What are some precautions that we need to take, or defensive driving tips that you can provide us when we're traveling through a work zone?
Well, you heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Be alert for changing conditions ahead of you. Be alert for changing conditions around you. You have to be prepared to stop, and, just keeping yourself focused on the drive, knowing what's going on inside and outside of your car. Just expect the unexpected. We talk about speed being a factor in so many of these incidents. So another defensive driving tip that we tell everybody is reduce your speed and leave a little extra room. Don't tailgate the person in front of you, because it's not going to make them go any faster. The closer you get, the slower they may get. So you have to be able to react to an emergency with your stopping distance. Something else is keeping your eyes on the road and not stop looking in the median to see what the progress is. Some people might want to see what the equipment looks like, but some people want to see, what are they doing with this road? Bring your eyes back in your car from the median, because that's a distraction to some people. And distractions. So Georgia is a hands-free state, so you can't be on the phone. You can't be holding the handset of your phone, but it's just as dangerous to be on hands-free. But it doesn't make sense to add a distraction when you're driving through an area that's already frustrating with fast-changing conditions. I think keeping yourself safe requires you to be focused and focus on that drive and focus on the road, regardless of what other drivers do. And this is going to sound so familiar to you, Chelsea, because this is defensive driving 101. You are in control of yourself. You are in control of your vehicle. You control the way you react to the conditions, and you control the way that you respond to other drivers. And that, again, that's defensive driving 101 right there.
Yes. Leigh, I feel personally victimized by your comment of people looking at the progress of construction every day.
Sorry.
Every day. I'm like, well, what did they do last night? Like, I mean, come on. Like, especially at the I-16, I-95, I'm counting how many pillars have been stood up. Like, what are you doing? Like, where are we going? Like, what progress? So yes, ma'am, I understand. I will stop doing that.
Yeah, downtown
Didn't mean to call you out.
Definitely a place you have to be careful. Because there is a lot of construction going on in downtown Savannah. I'm sure as soon as we brought up work zone safety, everybody immediately thought of Broad Street and was like, I know where the construction is. So do you have any tips for commuters who are coming into the city to come to work? And anything about pedestrians? I know we have a lot of tourists walking around trying to find the right way to go when they're trying to get to the shops and the sites to see. And they might be darting around construction vehicles and cones. How do you handle all of that when you're just trying to go to work and drive defensively?
Or if you're a tourist and you're trying to get to your hotel for the first time and you've never been to Savannah before, and all of a sudden the street is closed and that's the street you were supposed to go down.
That's the street you need.
Yeah.
It's always the street you need. That's closed.
It is always that way. So it's going to impact our driving. We have to look for alternative routes. I always tell people that the younger generation will never appreciate MapQuest directions, printing out that, couple of pages. And some of the people my age are going to remember printing out the MapQuest turn by turn directions and going down the street. But, trying to find an alternative route, trying to find other streets before you leave for your destination. And if you can't find an alternative route, you don't want to be late for work every day. So you might have to allow for extra time, and that just means getting up earlier in the mornings. But you do need to allow a little extra time to get through there. I know. But also, you've got to think about the sidewalks that are being affected, because if you're a tourist and you're walking down the street and all of a sudden there's sidewalk closed, we may find pedestrians that are crossing the street not in a crosswalk in areas that we don't expect it. And they may have to even walk into the street. I had to walk in the street the other day to the courthouse because the sidewalk was closed and there wasn't a sidewalk on the other side. So, making sure that you're looking at the sidewalks and looking out for pedestrians. The large equipment, I noticed down here, we have big fences and stuff that surround some of this construction. And it's really easy for someone to just step out from behind that and we not see them before it's too late. So I think if you're going through these areas with the big, large blinding fence or the moving, the equipment that's there, you want to slow